And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and excited to be with everybody here on this wonderful Monday and a little behind the curtain. Sometimes Schlles and I got some stuff to do. So we record a little early, try to work out our schedules the very best we can. And so sometimes on Monday's show, we do it on Sunday, just depending what's going on. So Monday, as today, I am playing in the OSU NIL golf outing, and they asked me to do that for the baseball team. And so I go out there and try to help and do some things and do what I can with that. So I've got that going on Monday as of today as we're seeing this. Schlles drove all weekend. He had some stuff going on Saturday. I had some stuff going on Sundays. I'm in Philadelphia right now with my son for lacrosse. And so you know what? We landed on a time. This was the only time I could do it. And maybe he'll jump on here. Maybe he won't. We'll see. He drove all night, all day and night from Jacksonville to get back to Columbus. End up pulling a U-Haul, which is something that I don't think he intended on originally. And then the U-Haul had some problems, and they couldn't go very fast. And so while he's bouncing back, only driving 60, 65 miles an hour the whole way, that significantly slowed down his progress. So instead of getting home, I don't know, probably around, I think he left at 9. It would have been like 9. He didn't get until 1. So put about another 4 hours on the trip for our guy Schlles. So, and then he also walked in. This is the best. And anybody that's ever moved, or I guess even been on vacation understands how all this works. No one likes a surprise when they come back in their house. And Schlles came back into his house to a surprise. I don't know if you can pull that up through the chat, like through our little group chat or what you can do. But Schlles came back and there was a little surprise up in the ceiling where some of it had fallen down. It's an older house. I think it's plaster. And it looked like there was a nice little nugget that had just dropped out of the ceiling. So he's like, I got to deal with this, bro. We're going to the JR Memorial later today as of Saturday. So I was like, I get it. I'll do it. It's either you fly solo on Monday, which Schlles in the wild flying solo is a little bit scary for everybody. Or you could have me being able to do this on Sunday or on this weekend, and then we'll air it for Monday. Because there's some good stuff that I ultimately saw out there. And so there's some cool things that we need to get discussing. Look at this. This is my guy Schlles' house right there. Not a great situation. Folks, I can't honestly tell you, like outside of there being like 3 inches of water in the floor, coming back to that and saying, oh, that looks nice. And my boy Beam, who was on with us Friday, that actually happened to him while he was sitting in the living room in his house. And you get these older homes that have plaster, and poof, David Copperfield, as Schlles said, fell out. And I don't know if that was water related or what potentially was going on with that. But yeah, not a great situation that he is dealing with here, that he's been trying to work with. So he's got to get that figured out, unfortunately. And so that's what he's working with and trying to work through at the moment. So not a great situation for him by any stretch as he's trying to figure this all out and get this changed. So I lament with my guy. I feel for him. I'm trying to make sure that, hey, take care of your stuff, man. Go do all that. And I think I can handle the show here this day and this weekend. But I did see this weekend. Came across John Gruden works for Barstool Sports. But John Gruden talking about the Cradle of Coaches at Miami, Ohio, and giving some props that a lot of Ohio State and a lot of the great coaches in the Big Ten, NFL, some great players came out of Miami University at Oxford.
That's the Cradle of Coaches. Paul Brown, Weeb Eubank, Sid Gilman, John Harbaugh, Sean McVay. And then you get into the greatest college football coaches ever. How about Bo Schembechler at Michigan? How about Woody Hayes at Ohio State? How about Eric Parsegian at Notre Dame? I mean, it's unbelievable. And then when you think about the world champion San Francisco 49er dynasty, Montana, Rice, Roger Craig, John McVay was the general manager. Hell, his grandson is Sean McVay. All these McVays. There was another John McVay that played safety in the same defensive backfield that Ron Zook played in. Look at this place, the Cradle of Coaches. You know John Pont went there to Miami, Ohio? Did you know that Paul Dietzel, Miami, Ohio? Hell, Paul Dietzel not only was a great coach, He went on to be a great athletic director.
So they talk about the coaches, Paul Brown, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler. Then you get some NFL guys, Sean McVay and the McVay tie with his grandfather even working there prior. And then this was one of the best parts here. And this was something I got a lot of people that sent this over to me. And it's something that always makes me proud. And they even brought this up in Detroit when I was playing for the Lions up there. Understanding situation, time to win, putting the team above yourself. As you heard Coach Laughlin, our guy, Carlos Laughlin, talk about on Thursday. And let's run the rest of that with some of the other players.
They've had a lot of good players, man, at Miami. They've had a lot of good running backs. I can remember working some of these guys out. One of my favorite running backs was Rob Carpenter. He played for the Giants and the Oilers. And one time in a 2-minute drill, he was hurt. And instead of having to use a timeout, he crawled off the field, man. Rob Carpenter, badass, Miami, Ohio. Sherman Smith, one of the old-time dual threats.
Oh, and Sherman Smith. So Sherman was the quarterback with my dad at Miami. Randy Walker, the late, great Randy Walker, head coach at Miami for a long time, was their fullback. My dad was the tailback. He coached at Northwestern as well. I think he took them to their last Big Ten championship, I believe, in 2000, if I'm not mistaken, but did a heck of a job there. And then giving some props to my dad. So I sent that over to my mom because my dad didn't have a smartphone or understand how to do all that. And I remember seeing that clip, and he used to talk to us about that in high school. Jim Schwartz brought it up like, hey, if you don't need to burn a timeout, don't burn a timeout. And because of that, I don't know, I guess that probably is the reason. I've only been carted off the field once. It was when I broke my leg in high school. Even when I broke my ankle at the Michigan game, I hopped off, and I just have never been a fan of playing on the field. And I guess some of it was, or a lot of it was probably due to that, due to the fact that, hearing that story about my dad, pretty amazing stuff. And I love when Gruden does that. I'd always check him out, follow him on Barstool. He's one of the best coaches that they've had in the NFL. He's really darn good. And obviously some stuff happened with him at the Raiders. I think more of it was the fact that he was hypercritical of Goodell at times, and they wanted to find a way to get him out of there. But John Gruden, one of the great all-time coaches, and bringing up the Cradle of Coaches, Miami, Ohio, and the ties, not just through the MAC, but through the NFL, but really through the entire Big Ten. And like I said, he said Paul Brown, going there, and then also you start looking at the fact that both Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler both coached there, and two of the iconic coaches in Big Ten, and two of the best in modern history, doing it at a really high level. Both have ties in state to Miami, Ohio, and just how great it is. And then how that's still been perpetuated, and everything has continued to move. And they still, to this day, with Sean McVay and everything else with the Rams, and it's still producing high quality coaches that have come through there. And Chuck Martin, my brother, coached with him at Notre Dame. I don't think it's Cincinnati too, but at Notre Dame. And really enjoy Chuck, and doing a great job there as well. Parents and athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes and designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit to your own unique smile. They 3D print that bad boy so it fits like a glove for more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication. So then you can focus on your game and not just on your gear. Do not take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby today and save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. Now, we got a big show here coming up today. There's some news coming out of Michigan. So, folks, if you've been hanging with us this long, they've got the lawsuit pending up there. There's been some additions to it. They've changed it up a little bit, and some notable names have come under the purview of the lawsuit. We'll get to that. But before we get to that next, Ohio State's a blue blood in college football. And, I always try to tell people this, don't take for granted the success of your team, because there's other blue bloods in football that have struggled. There's blue bloods in basketball that have struggled. And when some of the stats come into play, you really begin to scratch your head and think, how did we lose our way and how did we get here? I'll tell you about that program, and we'll compare that to Ohio State coming up next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
Welcome back to the Bobby Carpenter Show, and please, we enjoy the fact that you're watching. Like, subscribe, connect with us, get in the chat, leave comments, leave questions. We love to answer your stuff. We do this as much for everybody, and that's why we try to get the coaches out here, work on getting some of the players. Players, coincidentally, are on their bye week from lifting. They are smattered about the country, so this is their real final vacation. They get the week of the 4th off, go out. Maybe some of the guys go back home. I know Julian's saying he was going back to California to catch some tasty waves. I asked him before he left, what are you going to do? You going back home? Yeah. I mean, when you live in California, that is like a vacation. It's a place I'd rather vacation than live. Some of the guys are going to the Bahamas, going around the country doing some different things, vacation spots. But I asked Julian, I was like, hey, there's a famous quarterback. He goes, I'm going to go do some surfing. There was a famous quarterback at Ohio State who used to surf by the name of Johnny Utah. You ever heard of him? He looked at a pause. He goes, yeah, that's the dude out of the movie, right? And I'm like, all right, Point Break. And I think he maybe even threw the movie in there. I was like, well, you can play quarterback now at Ohio State. Because if you wouldn't have known who Johnny Utah was, I wasn't going to, dude, we're out. We're on to the next. And so well done on that, Pat. He nailed it. He had Johnny Utah, Ohio State Buckeyes, and was ready to roll. So it was pretty sweet for him to be able to remember that and pull that up. And I honestly, I was kind of surprised that he knew that, given the fact that he's probably, 19 years old, I'm guessing, and that movie came out probably close to 35, 40 years ago. So at least we're in good hands. And we're ready to go. And so whether it's him or Lincoln, I don't know. And both the guys are awesome, and they're great in their different ways. But the kid from California, where's he from? Calabasas or Carlsbad, one of the two. I always get them confused. That he knew who Johnny Utah was. So that was a big, big win for me looking at that. So those guys are smattered about. And then they're on a hard 3-week grind. And we'll talk with Schlles more about this in the coming weeks of coming back, get a couple of days off, and then boom, they're into training camp, and football is here. So always kind of consider this week kind of the midway point of summer for football players, because once that July 4th hits, you've got about a month, 3.5 weeks, and then you're into the football season. So the summer is over for you. So these guys are enjoying it. They've got to decompress a little bit. They've been grinding really hard with Mick and doing a great job. But we're going to throw this up, pal. We're going to get this. Before we get to it, I'll promo you this. Ohio State has been good at football for about 75 years without break. There's been a blip here or there, and you look at the last couple seasons of Woody, last season of Woody, when Coop got here, a little rough. The end of Coop, early Tress, a little rough. But those are in like coaching transitions. The Luke Fickell year is the only year in the 2000s where Ohio State hasn't had a winning record, and they're 6-7. Ultimately lost in that Gator Bowl to Florida. Urban comes in, and then the last, from 12 till 24, 2 national titles, and Ryan has them geared up for another run this year, him being the last 6, and now going into his 7th season, I believe, at Ohio State, or maybe going to his 8th, maybe, I believe. So anyway, they don't miss. So when people always say fire the quarterback coach, or fire the quarterback, fire the coach, like let's move on, let's get somebody else in here. Ohio State hasn't missed on a coaching hire since Woody Hayes. It's important to note that, because you look at Bama suffered sometimes. You look at Michigan through the Brady Hoke and Rich Rod era. You look at Bama prior to Nick Saban getting in there, Texas post-Mac Brown era, Florida until now. And it looks like Billy Napier is like making their way out of the woods, like the Israelites finding the promised land, coming back through 40 years of wandering in the desert. They're there. Florida State had some rough times. USC had some rough times, and maybe having some rough times again. Maybe they're really not even out of it. Like they had a Heisman Trophy winner, but they haven't had any substantial success. And Urban said, like going 8-5 at Ohio State. Yeah, you try showing your face around town if you're a head coach. You can do that in California because you're anonymous. And so some of these elite high-level programs, like they've all had these dips. The blue bloods, you look at it in basketball. Coach K was at Duke forever. That transition is tough. And it looks like they're in a pretty good spot right now. Obviously, with how well they played last year and Cooper Flag and everything else. And then you start thinking about, Indiana in basketball, how they struggled for times. Kansas has been pretty good, but, some ups and some downs. Kentucky, they've had some ups, they've had some downs. And it brought me to Carolina, and I saw this up here. And throw this up, Pat, because this is what's wild. And I saw this. I was growing up. I was a huge Carolina fan. I mean, Michael Jordan. Then you go to Jameson and Stackhouse and Rasheed Wallace. I mean, just some great players that they were able to have through those runs and how good they were. And top 5 picks, number 1 overall picks, national championships, Dean Smith. But in the last UNC hasn't produced a top 5 draft pick in the last 20 years. And that's pretty crazy. And so okay, if you're a 6 or 7 overall, whatever. They had Sean May, and they had a run there. Roy Williams did a pretty good job. But USC, and Vince Carter was part of those early runs, that said UNC hasn't produced an NBA all-star since Vince Carter. And it's okay. It's one thing maybe not getting drafted all that high. It's another piece when then guys get in there to the next level and they're not great. And that's not to say that UNC hasn't had some great teams, over the years, but they're struggling right now, UB Davis. And they've got some issues that they've got to get figured out. And anytime you have these transitions, and Roy Williams was there, and believe me, they were winning and doing whatever. Tyler Hansborough was a really good player, but just maybe not an NBA guy. But when you think about North Carolina, man, you see Vince Carter there. That's some of the guys that I mentioned that were really good. And you go in the Wayback Machine with James Worthy and Michael Jordan, and guys like that just all the sweet Carolina players that they had produced in the unbelievable Tar Heel Blue and everything else. And the fact that they haven't had a top 5 pick or an all-star in 20 years. Like, think about that if that was Ohio State football. If they hadn't produced a top 5 pick, and in basketball, it's a little different. Top 5 is like basically being, I would say, top half of the first round at Ohio State, maybe top 20 for football. And so imagine if Ohio State hadn't produced a top 20 pick in football in 2 decades, and they hadn't had a Pro Bowler in 2 decades. Hell, Terry McLaurin was all pro, and he didn't even really play till his senior year. And he was a 2nd-round pick. And so that, like, the inherent talent level they're getting, and then how good those guys are at the end. And so this goes back to like what Urban was talking about. Wins matter a lot. Production matters a lot. Recruiting matters because you need to get the great players. Now, Coach Carlos Lachlan told us on Thursday, which if anybody hadn't seen, I encourage everyone to go back and watch that. You got a lot of little clips and nuggets out there about it, but dude, go back and watch. It was like 27 minutes. I told him we were going to keep him 15 to 20. He's on vacation. He's up in Ontario and loves the water, looking at Niagara Falls, finding Buckeyes everywhere. But he goes, I can coach anybody. It's like last year, Trey and Q, like that was easy because you're going to find out about me this year. We got a lot of unknowns. We got James Peoples, Sam Williams-Dixon, Bo Jackson, CJ Donaldson, and how he's coaching these guys and the expectations of what that they're going to have. But he's like, I'll coach anybody. But it's easier always if you're starting, running downhill a little bit. You need some guys that have some innate ability, but you need workers too to be able to do that. When you can blend them, that's when you get very special players. But recruiting rankings matter to me in the fact that, hey, are you top 5? Are you getting great players across the board at a multitude of positions? And then you can take those great players and what do you do with them? How do you transform them into becoming great college players? And if they have great ability and great traits, then those guys ultimately go and they become great players at the next level. And they become elite players, in the pro game. And like I've been thinking about Ohio State basketball and just running this through my head. And I mean, I think Evan Turner's been in the last 20 years and he was a top 5 pick. Like Ohio State, I think, has had more, probably maybe a couple more high-end guys than Carolina ultimately has. But and this is what I'm saying, it's always transferable among sports because you start thinking of blue bloods and what that means. And obviously, the component of success on the field, championships, All-Americans, And then those guys going to that next level to be able to play at that next level. And what do they ultimately look like there? Because that also helps recruiting too. When guys get there and you're seeing Pro Bowl, Pro Bowl, Pro Bowl, All-Star, 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 top 5 pick, first round pick, all of these guys. And they looked at Ohio State this year. Yeah, 14 picks, 4 in the first round. Boom. You start looking at the all-pro rosters and the guys out there, and you're looking at the Bosa brothers and what they're able to do, and Zeke for a long time. Then you're looking at the receiving core of what they're doing, and some of the guys in the back end and how good they've played over the years, and winning all rookie of the year on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. Like all of those awards, and those things all matter because it raises the profile of your school. And for a place like Carolina, you'd always think that was just a given. It was a given. And so when you think about Ohio State and you think these things are givens, I always tell people, do not take them for granted, because you never know when it can ultimately change. And you never know that all of a sudden, yeah, we haven't had something for a year, we haven't had something for 5 years. And then one day you wake up and all of a sudden, poof, you realize that it's been a decade. It's been 2 decades. And that's the same thing when you start getting into some of these coaching hires and everything else. And when you miss on something and then you miss again, things become disjointed. And so it's very special what we have at Ohio State, especially this last 25-year run and how good it's been. And on the field with the success and 2 national championships and a slew of Big Ten championships, but then also high-level players, All-Americans, high-level draft picks, and those guys then going on to further the prestige of Ohio State ultimately in the NFL. So it's a big deal, and it's pretty cool. We've got some more news about Michigan. Everybody loves to bang on Michigan, do this. And so I'm not the biggest fan of getting on this, but we do have some information. I do like to share it. And when it comes out, and this came out, I believe, Friday night, I think I saw it come through. I wanted to get to it here this week because there's, a lawsuit going on right now, against Michigan and everything that's going on there. They're trying to figure this all out, and it's pretty amazing. With what they're doing with the NCAA, and they're obviously in the next couple of weeks, maybe month, going to have their decisions rendered about everything that went on. But there's the lawsuit pending against Michigan, and we're going to get into that because there's some new news that was coming out. As I said, people are at it. We'll get to that here after the break. We've got more with the Bobby Carpenter Show coming up next. All right, welcome back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. Lawsuit against Michigan. I guess Ward Manuel and former head AD Ward Manuel and former head coach Jim Harbaugh have been added to the hacking lawsuit against UM assistant Matt Weiss. As per the Associated Press, they were among officials added to the suit on Friday in Detroit in a federal court. And this is from our friends over at On3, including the former university president, Santaono, who, as we remember, tried to pack up his bags and have a golden parachute over at Florida. Florida had approved him. Then when they went to vote on it, as per their board of trustees, regents, whatever they're calling it, they said no. But attorneys in the suit claim that Harbaugh and others knew Weiss was viewing the private information on the computer in December of 22. However, he was still able to work at Michigan as the co-offensive coordinator during a playoff game about a week later. And so knowledge of this and not doing anything and allowing him to proceed is what they're alleging here. According to the lawsuit, a staff member saw Weiss viewing that private information in Schembechler Hall just over a week before Michigan took on TCU in the college football playoff. He was fired in January of 23, but that was after the game and amid the investigation into his computer of what he was doing. Separate additions to the lawsuit, Weiss is charged with identity theft and unauthorized computer access from 2013 to 2015 per the AP. According to an incident, he had access to social media and email and cloud storage of accounts for more than 2,000 college athletes and 1,300 students or alumni from schools around the country, primarily to find images of women. So there's all kinds of stuff going on in this suit, in this case. Had Harbaugh, the suit alleges, had Harbaugh implemented basic oversight of his staff, plaintiffs in the class would have been protected against predators such as Weiss. The AP says instead, Weiss was highly compensated asset and was promoted within the football program, from which he was able to and did target female student athletes. So Weiss is basically a creep. He got in there, was digging in people's social media, digging in their private stuff, doing a lot of things that like you wouldn't, you would be ashamed if people found out that you were doing. And so what is going to come with Michigan with all this? That's per the lawsuit. The NCAA, they finished up their findings. They had and that was as far as with the Connor Stallions deal. I did find my Connor Stallions glasses, by the way. I thought I lost them. But that was for all of his sign stealing and everything that's going on. So we're going to hear about that here at some point in the future. Before training camp, I would imagine, but probably at worst, like sometime in August. I think they said it was usually 8 weeks from the target date when they, as the target date from when they had their final ruling, or when they give their ruling from the final hearing. And so we'll see kind of how that breaks out here. But I don't know what the punishments for them should be. I know there was a lot of seedy things going on. I'm a big believer now with the salary cap era, dude. Just, hey, we're going to take $10 million from your salary cap. You have to try to then find that. You're not going to be able to spend it, so have fun holding on to players. Maybe you have a 1-year postseason ban. Ultimately, you have to take, whatever the $10 million donated to the NCAA so they can use that to fight more lawsuits. I don't know. But there's going to be some stuff, I think, handed down and rendered here in a big way moving forward. Before we get out of here and get to some of our headlines, unbelievable invention that I came across. Everybody loves transfusions on a golf course, but they're really hard to bring with you. They do have transfusions in a can. I don't think they're quite as good, if you will, as your traditional transfusions, because those are homemade and they've got just the unbelievable stuff that's all connected there with them. I ran across this. Check this out of how to make your homemade transfusion dispenser on the course. We can hit play on that. We'll take a little peek. We'll use some there. So as I'm watching this thing, like, what are they doing? Why would we drill a hole in a golf bag? Why are we going to cut this liner out, cut the sleeve out? Oh, we're going to put a jug in there. Oh, a little nozzle. It's like, well, what's the purpose of that? Oh, I see the Welch's, like that. See the limes going in there. Love that. Okay, now I think I'm on board. Tito's, vodka, great. We're getting it done. Put that whole fifth in there, maybe a little more. There's comes the ginger ale. I don't even know what that stuff is. Some sort of whey protein to make sure you're pumped up. And then, of course, use the stirring rod off of the drill. And as Schlles likes to say, poof, David Copperfield. There you go. I don't know if I'm going to do that to my golf bag. It's a little bit older. I don't know where I would store my balls then. And like my glove, I guess I could put it on the side. But I might go buy a new golf bag and do that with it. I love transfusions so much. Of course, they're amazing, especially after a hard night. That's the point. They transfuse your body. They bring you back to life. They get you feeling good. And so when you see these innovations, you see these inventions, dude, you got to find a way to implement them. And so I'm going to get that done. I'm going to figure out a way to ultimately do it. And you got to ruin a golf bag as you do it. But I think by ruining it for its intended purpose, you might actually be enhancing it, folks. And that's something that's pretty sweet. And yeah, so I would encourage everybody to try that out. I don't know if I'll be able to try that out as per today, as you're watching the show on Monday, but I need to get a new golf bag because I've got two. The other one I have is like embroidered and has my name on it and everything else. I don't want to rip that thing apart. Yeah, but the golf bag I'm currently using is like, as Schlles will always tell you, I got it when we got drafted, so it's about 20 years old now. And my clubs are 20 years old, all of them. And you know what? They hit just as good as the day that I got them because it's more the arrow. It's more the Indian than the arrow. And so if I'm hitting the ball well, that's because of me, not because of my clubs. If I'm hitting it bad, it's definitely not because of them. That's more because of me. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Backer Sports. As we're talking about playing some golf, go check out bckr.com, pronounced Backer, for elite Buckeye fan gear. I love that the folks here, they're checking it out. I'm getting some comments and stuff on X, on Instagram, people hitting up, they're leaving stuff in the comments box about this because it was founded to make premium quality fan gear for Buckeye teams, and they're looking to expand this ultimately as well. They've got the products that are better than anything else out there. It's like the high-end golf, fishing, hunting, the skiing equipment. It's got all the doodads and whatchamacallits, as I told you last time. And people love it. The little key hooks, the awesome pockets, the zippers, they feel good. The windbreakers, they've the cold weather gear. They've got the rain gear. They've got awesome hats. It's all there. I've worn the windbreaker a ton, and it's tremendous. The rain gear, it's awesome. One day I had it on, though. It was going from rain to heat to rain to heat. So it was like sweat or rain. Which did you want to deal with? But it was awesome, man. The thing was like a plastic bag, just whoosh, shooting it right off. So go check them out. Backer.com, BCKR.com. Promo code all caps, BOBBY at checkout. Free expedited shipping, so it's going to get to you faster and in a big way. So go check them out. That's BackerBCKR.com. We got our headlines coming up next. And is Ohio State, per EA Sports, is it the toughest place to play in college football? We'll find out what they say next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
All right, welcome into our headlines, brought to you by our friends at Lake Spur Marketing. It's a full-service ad agency built on trust, strategy, performance, all the things you like and love. Their team shields you from the unwanted nonsense, the things you don't want to do. They help grow your business so you're not dealing with the cold calls and all of the outside noise, and they let you do what you do best, run your business. They have over 100 years of experience that I keep telling you about, that they deliver on budget. They eliminate the waste. They don't chase clicks. They help build partnerships to grow your firm. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in their partners. EA Sports coming out. There's going to be a lot of news that we have dropped in here that we're going to talk about them. But they said the toughest places to play. Andrew Lynn tweeted out, Ohio State is not one of the toughest places to play in college football. Ohio State is just better than most teams that visit. There's a difference. There probably is some truth to that as far as Ohio State being better than most teams that play. I don't know if that's wholly true. I've been to Tiger Stadium. Now, it was for an early day game. It wasn't night. Not great. I've been down to Georgia for a night game. I've been to Oklahoma for a night game. I've been to Ohio Stadium for that Tennessee game, amongst other night games. Absolutely tremendous. When you get the right opponent at the right time in Ohio Stadium, I will tell you this, I don't think there is a better place to play. And anybody that was there for that Tennessee game will say that was elite, unbelievable, unreal juice. People were fired up. They were ready to go. They were locked in and rolling. But we look at this Tiger Stadium up there. I will admit, I think it's pretty darn good. My man, Jacob Hester, who we do, who's been on the show here before. I'm going to get him on the show some more as we start moving through. I work with him at XM, and he'll always stump for Tiger Stadium at night. I would say consistently, week in and week out, Ohio State is the best. LSU, I watched them, and they're playing UCLA, and UCLA wasn't great last year, and it was a game in the third quarter, and people were leaving. They're like, oh, it's hot. I'm like, hot? It's a game. UCLA is down by 7 to LSU. LSU has aspirations at this point still of winning the SEC. You're losing to a mid-tier Big Ten team, or they're within a score in the third or fourth quarter, and people are walking out. Crazy town. Beaver Stadium. My brother played at Cincinnati. They played over there. My dad goes, not a great environment. When Ohio State came to town, and he said, we're there for your games, elite environment. Other ones, not really that full, kind of sleepy, not all that great. Ohio State consistently on a week in and week out is one of the best. And for the big games, when you get them there, it is unreal. And I'll keep going back to that. The game against Tennessee, man, that playoff game. And sometimes Buckeye fans, they just need a little prodding. You know, you need to have your pride checked a little bit, challenged, and saying, hey, Tennessee's going to come in and take it over. And you have to maybe thin the herd a little bit too. I think some of the people that were naysayers that maybe would have turned into boo birds or maybe sat on their hands and complained about the cold didn't show up and sold their tickets. When that place got about 25-30% burnt orange with the volunteers, people that were there rose to the level of the occasion. And I'll tell you this, and I told the players, you got to give them something to cheer about now, folks. Fellas, you got to get them, make some big plays. You got to get excited. Make big plays on offense. Celebrate with your teammates. Defense, pump the crowd. Get them going on third down. Make the big third down sack. make a big hit on third down, jar the ball loose from a receiver, and then you got the punt team coming out. I guarantee you, then juice the crowd up, celebrate together. That will be the stuff that gets people excited. It will make it incredibly hard to play. You got Georgia Stadium with Sanford Stadium coming next, which it was a sweet environment. I watched them against Tennessee. It looked like Ohio State during the playoff game. You got Bryant Denny at Alabama, which against big games is great. Memorial at Clemson, which you've seen on TV, is very, very good. Florida, I think, is getting back to it. But part of it is you got to have a good product. You know, you can't tell me how great a restaurant is when you don't have great food. Service was exquisite. Food not very good. That's kind of the main thing. Okay, you can't have a good in-stadium environment without a great place, great product on the field. You know, Gaylord family, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Okay, against Alabama, or who did they beat? Alabama. No, yeah, Tennessee, yeah, Alabama. They beat Bama. You beat a team like that at home at night. Poof, David Copperfield. It's going to be real. You know, when you're losing to Tennessee at home, people are going to try to cheer, and it's just when the game doesn't feel like you're ever in it. Autzen, not big. Everybody that went there said it was elite. I'm pissed I didn't go. I'll have to wait till the next time they circle around. And then Michigan being number 10 by the sheer size and scope is good, but it doesn't really ever have that crazy energy. And part of it is, folks, it's dug down in. It's not me crapping on Michigan. It's just the bowl. So when you walk up to it, it doesn't look that intimidating from the outside because it's dug in. Then when you get in there, it's just like the Rose Bowl. It's a big, huge bowl. There's no big, nice backdrop. There's no architecture to it. It doesn't rise really high. It doesn't lock in the sound. And that's one of the reasons I think at 10, yeah, I mean, but it's big, it's iconic, the big house, it's got a cool name, but that's about where it ends. And those are our headlines brought to you by our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. Check them out for all of your marketing needs. They do a great job. Let them help you like they help so many folks. All right, coming up next, we've got our Tailgate Talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. And we'll get to some of these comments from the Carlos Lachlan edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show and what you guys were saying about that coming up next.
Creative, experience, results. That's what drives growth. That's what builds brands. That's Lake Spur Marketing, a full-service agency built on trust, strategy, and performance, not fluff. From bold strategies to flawless execution, every campaign is rooted in smart planning and driven by clear goals. We don't chase clicks. We build partnerships. We show up, dig in, and deliver every single time. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in our partners.
We got some great comments, and it's a lot of our normal community that we've created. And we love that you guys get in the chat and you guys leave these comments and all this stuff. A lot of great things we're saying here. Will Star World comments on a lot of stuff here. Watching this at 3:46 a.m. on Friday morning, and the chat replay is turned on. Pat, great job. Way to get that done. Thank you, Bobby Schlles and Patrick, for turning on that option. For viewers like me that can't always watch the live stream, much appreciated. You know what? Appreciate you for watching, bro. Unbelievable. 3:46 in the morning. I always wonder what people are doing then. Not only a great coach, but a superb man by Greg Ellickson. One of the ones at the top by Terry U1180. Give this man a 10-year extension immediately. Followed up by Jeffrey McDowell, 7189. That's the best quote I've ever heard. I'm frying the chicken. Love it. Love the motivation you give these guys. And what that means is if you're like, I'm the cook in the kitchen here, guys. I'm the one frying the chicken. Okay. So I'm the one that's getting everything done. You know, scrolling down a little bit. Neil throws in there. Great interview with Coach Locke. Love that he realizes how special Ohio State and Columbus are. His twin daughters are sophomores at OSU, along with Clarette's daughter. And yeah, it's amazing. Like Carlos came here, said he had never bought a house in any other city he lived in. Gets to Columbus, Ohio. We're buying a house. And what is amazing about this is a guy from Montgomery, Alabama. You know, it's not some guy from Ohio or grew up in the Midwest. Like this dude is an SEC guy. And you know what? He loves Ohio State and he loves the Buckeyes. And he's all about that Buckeye life. And so kudos for him. Good for him. He loves it here. And I always tell people, once you come to Columbus, Ohio, and you see Ohio State, you fall in love with it. BA-47, I don't think I've ever seen a better RB coach than Coach Locke. I hope he retires a Buckeye. And I think he wants to be here as long as Ryan will keep him. And what's amazing is, like he said, his job, he reminded me of Schlles when he said this, my job is to support Ryan Day to make sure he's the best coach in America by me being the best running backs coach in America, and to support Brian Hartline with what we're doing, to support Matt Patricia with what I'm doing. And like, he's just rallying down the line. You hear an attitude of service and selflessness because, like, man, I'm at the place I want to be. I'm where I want to be in my career. He's the walk-on coach, man. He was the coach that came here and came from nothing. And so we'll get into this more the rest of the week as well. But my gosh, he is an unbelievable guy, and keep pouring in those comments about him as well. Encourage everybody to go back and watch it if you haven't seen it, or even rewatch it. I made my kids watch it because that's how good it was. And we'll talk a little more about that. We're getting long for a break here. We're going to wrap up the show with some parting thoughts here coming up next. Welcome in to the final segment here of the show, wrapping up with some parting thoughts. Listen, folks, we live in a busy world. Everybody needs to take some time. It's a week off for Ohio State. Their players are decompressing. They're going to get a week. They get their runs. They get their lifts, do a little bit of this, stay in shape. But sometimes you just got to plateau a little bit. Everybody views success as like linear. Sometimes you get up there, you're climbing, flatline a little bit, settle back down, maybe even drop just a tad. And then you're getting ready for the big vertical ascent again. And that's what the guys are doing right now. Taking a little time, get your brain space right, get away from it. So when you come back, you're locked in and ready to go in a big, big way. And that's what they're going to be ready to get going here very, very soon. So kudos to them for having some time off. Mick plans the schedule really, really well. They're going to do a darn good job, and very, very excited to see what it's going to look like after the 4th of July. We'll keep you updated this week. Maybe try to get one of the players on from their locale. I don't know. We'll see what the guys are up to. But stay locked in. We appreciate it. We'll catch you up on Tuesday on the Bobby Carpenter Show.